After a 27-month bull run, the real estate market is finally starting to change. Hi, I'm Jessi Johnson, best-selling author and Vancouver realtor and mortgage broker since 2006.
And I'm Azim Virani, longtime real estate investor and also Metro Vancouver realtor.
So in this episode of Own Your Life, we're going to be covering the following hot topics: rising interest rates and Canadian housing affordability, inflation and how it affects real estate, May's sales data, the new cooling off period. We're going to cover a sneak peek into a great new listing before it hits the market, and cover a couple quick feature listings and share why we love them so much.
So Jessi, off the top, with the market changing, a big question on people's minds are, what can buyers do to protect themselves from these rising interest mortgage rates?
Yeah, first and foremost, I'd be diving into obtaining a rate hold, whether that's through your mortgage broker or a bank. Now, preferably if you're using a broker, whether that's me or someone else is not relevant. In the event of something going sideways, if they have to switch lenders, if you're with your bank, you have to start from scratch with someone else. So just a heads up when you're getting a rate hold, be cautious where you get it. And make sure that rate hold is very clear. All documents have been verified and it's been properly submitted, because a lot of times they're not. Now, right now, interest rates are over 4% on the 5-year fixed side. We're actually fast approaching 5%. We could be over 5% within a couple months. Many people are going towards the variable, which I still recommend. Yes, it went up a couple days ago, which we're going to cover in a few minutes, but the prime minus factor, again, is not as good as it was going back a few months ago, but you can still get very competitive rates coming off prime. And even though the Bank of Canada has increased the rates again, they'll probably do it one more time before the end of the year. I still think this is a better route to go, primarily because when we hit the recession, in order to stimulate the economy, we're going to be decreasing rates again. So people that take 5-year terms today are going to be likely kicking themselves in a few years. So many clients currently have rate holds. You know, you might even have someone who's still sitting at 1.5% for a 5-year fixed. Most of those are gone now. We still have some clients sitting at, the low 2s. Now, those are going to be expiring soon. When that does happen, we do expect sales to decline even further. Now, if you want to pull up a graph that I have here based on the bond yield. Now, the bond yield, which dictates the 5-year interest rates, essentially this is where lenders get their funds wholesale, and then they traditionally increase it by 1.5% on average, and that's the profit margin. Now, this graph goes back about 1 year, and you can see we've been on a very steady increase this year. There was a point where the bond yield actually cracked 3%, briefly, actually 2 points if I recall correct. As of today, at the time of this recording, it's 2.88. Generally speaking, again, the bond yield dictates the 5-year fixed rates, and they increase by 1.5%. So keep that in mind when you're looking at the bond yield. Adding 1.5 is a general rule of thumb to see where rates should be. Okay, so the overnight lending rate was increased by 0.5 point. Will it go any higher? We'll talk about that in a little bit. There's another graph I want to show you guys here. This is the overnight lending rate for the past 30 plus years. Now, you can see going back, it was quite high coming out of the 80s, because it was quite high in the 80s, of course, during that big crazy recession. When we had the last recession, the last big one in 2008, you can see what happened. They dropped it down to basically zero, almost. So yeah, it climbed up a tiny little bit, but it hasn't seen an incline up until recently. So again, realistically, we probably will have another decrease when we get deep into a recession. So even another 0.5 point in fall, or further another 0.5 point in 2023, realistically, you're still looking at a rate that's cheaper than today's 5-year fixed. So anyone really wanting to go fixed to help them sleep at night, I would recommend only taking a 1-year term and then refinancing either to a 1-year term or a variable or a more favorable 5-year rate at that time. Now, speaking on inventory, last March was the lowest March in history for listings. Now, that is certainly, taking a turn. The pendulum has changed. The lower inventory will keep prices a bit higher than they should be, but inventory is on quite the rise right now. As a realtor, if you actually have listings, good for you, because they've been very hard to come by over the past few years. Azim, can you think of anything else that would cause prices not to tank?
Yeah, definitely. Immigration is one concern that could keep prices up high. We know Canada's always been a safe haven for people. It's one of the most desirable countries in the world to live in. Add to that there are many crises in the world right now, not the least of which is the Ukrainian crisis, which is bringing more refugees to our country. And we simply don't have enough inventory for our own population to buy or to rent, let alone with increasing immigration numbers. For example, Canada recently increased their 2022 immigration goal to 430,000. Part of that is the Ukrainian refugee crisis and wanting to let in more people that are under hardship. Jessi, you know a bit about that yourself, I think, right?
Most definitely. I've taken on 2 Ukrainians myself, my girlfriend's parents. It was a horrific story, which I'm not going to cover here, but it took a couple months. We finally got them out, and they're now staying in Canada and working on setting up housing permanent for them here.
So my point in bringing that up is these aren't distant issues that we just hear about in the news. There are many Canadian families, whether it be the Ukrainian crisis or other, facing bringing their relatives into the country or their loved ones into the country. And that just adds more demand on housing.
Azim, what are the government goals for immigration for 2023 and 2024?
So for 2023, the federal government has a goal of 447,000. So that's up obviously from the 430,000 for this year. In 2024, it goes up to 450,000. And, we've got to wonder where everyone's going to be put.
Yeah, I don't get that.
Yeah. Jessi, what's the average home value currently?
Well, as of May, I didn't look it up as of this morning, but as of May, the Greater Vancouver, which would be based on an April stat actually, was 1,360,000. Now that's up 21% from the year before, and 38% from going back 2 years. I mean, these are astronomical numbers. According to Stats Canada, the average household income is only 66,000. And then the average single person is slightly higher at 34. Now, using the average Canadian household income, and we're not that much higher in the Metro Vancouver area, with a $50,000 down payment, Stats Canada's analysis was based on $1,100 in non-housing related expenses. That means you can afford a house of $292,000. What the beep are you going to buy with that? That also assumes you have no debt. Now, from my mortgage background, it's not common we see applications that actually have zero debt. There's always something on there. And for some people, there often is a lot more, like a car payment or a student loan or whatever. So this is assuming the family has flawless spending. The biggest issue here is income has not remotely increased at the same form of house prices. So I've got a graph I want to show you guys. This is rather disturbing. This is essentially Canada versus the US for the past 40 years. Now you look at the US first. Disposable income. First off, notice how the graph, that line is higher than home prices. We'll start with that. Furthermore, then you will see there's a correlation as they both go up together. Now you look at Canada, home prices are through the roof. Disposable income has just slowly gone up, and there's this mega gap that only continues to get worse. That is a huge, huge problem. It's like a bad nightmare that just continues to get worse. The average price of a home, it's sitting at 1.36, that's an increase of about 100% in just 6 years. So it's doubled in 6 years. That's insane. The higher interest rates, the lower qualification will, certainly hurt people's ability to qualify even further. So there's another graph I wanted to show you guys. This shows Q1 of 2020 to the end of this year. So, our peak for buying power would have been in Q1 of 2021, a little over a year ago. That puts you around 675. Now, that same human, according to how this pre-approval was set up, by the end of this year, they're going to be just over 550. So you've now taken off over $100,000 in purchasing power. That's a problem. That's another bit of a challenge that we have to be really creative in order to help buyers get into the market. The good news is we are pretty much in a balanced market in many sections. We're going to cover that a little bit more. And soon we're going to be in a buyer's market. So a lot of people that have been on the fence, concerned about competing and whatnot, they're going to have an opportunity to buy a property at a discounted price versus what they would have paid a few months ago. So, what I like to tell people, or we both like to tell people, is focus on the long term. Don't focus on 6 months or 12 months from now. Focus on you're buying a property, you're going to sit in it for 5 or 10 years. If the property drops, who cares? It's like stocks. Just don't sell. Just wait. It's not a big deal if you're not planning on selling. Now is a fantastic time to upgrade. Let's just say you've got a place that's worth $1 million. It's a townhouse. It's not big enough. You want a yard, you want a view, whatever. Now, you might take a 10% loss based on what if you had sold it a couple months ago. When you're buying the next property, if it's a greater value, you're winning because then you're going to get a 10% discount on the greater property. So that's a big difference. Since 1975, homes have appreciated 166 of the last 186 financial quarters. Those who generally try to time the market and hit the bottom or hit the top to sell rarely hit it. Primarily because we don't know when the top or bottom is until 2, 3, 6 months later, right? So, Azim, correct me if I'm wrong, real estate must be a top industry in Canada now.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Real estate is now one of the top 3 industries in the country, along with oil and gas and mining, which of course have been 2 long-term staples in the country. What does this translate to? The cost of property in Canada has now reached record high levels, making it one of these top 3, for one of the first times ever. What does that mean for affordability? Well, according to Stats Canada, only 10% of Canadian households earn over $100,000 per year. That means 90% of Canadians can't afford an average Canadian home. What does that mean? Well, firstly, the average Canadian without a wealthy cosigner or without family wealth are now statistically unable to own a home. So that's going to require a lot of creativity when new buyers or buyers that are maybe not qualifying for the home they want to buy a home. That kind of creativity is going to be things like getting a mortgage helper, getting a rental suite in a home, etc. Another thing people are going to have to do is take on massive mortgages, a lot of debt, and that's if they can get approved in order to avoid the instability of the rental market, which, a lot of people don't want to get into that. The longer you rent, potentially the more outpaced you are by the cost of homes. So this is going to mean that people are going to struggle with their payments if they take on these big mortgages. And if interest rates rise even half as much as they did in the 80s, homeowners are going to see very big problems. And we're going to get into some pretty scary times. Do we think it's going to get to that level? No, we don't. But still, it's something to keep in mind that as interest rates are going to go higher, things are just going to get worse. In any case, in the foreseeable future, renters will continue to bear the cost of these massive mortgages. People are going to try to offset the cost of their bigger mortgages on their rental suites, on their rental properties, and try to increase rental rates there even more. So with limited options, renters may end up staying in less desirable areas or living further out from the core of the city and commuting longer for work, etc. Jessi, how much income would you need to earn, say with $100K down payment, to afford the average Metro Vancouver home. And that's assuming, like you said before, magically the family has no debt, zero debt.
Yeah, when I ran this number, that was based, I think I did it about a week ago, and it was $134,000. So double what the average Canadian family makes. So like, do you have to have two families now with perfect debt to be able to afford the average Canadian home? Like that's insane. And that doesn't take into account if rates go up another half point, then you need more money. So let's talk about inflation. No longer the pink elephant in the room, a full-on invasion of our financial well-being. So the only reason to stop inflation is to increase rates. That's pretty much the go-to factor. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. After the government printed record amounts of money, the only way to turn that around is by increasing rates. I mean, all of this inflation is basically what happened from the government printing money. So everybody got to enjoy those funds for a couple of years, and now we're all paying for it and then some. So, let's talk about the 80s inflation rate. So I've got a graph to show you guys here. In the 80s, the peak, the inflation was over 12%. We're at a much lower number now, for now, but realistically, we all know the government's very good at hiding things, and the stated rate of inflation of 6.7%. It's not actually what inflation is. Probably closer to about 8% in reality. That's the lowest rate, I think, since 1990, or the highest rate since 1991, if I remember correctly, but based on the numbers they give us. So that being said, we could easily be in 80s inflation numbers within a few months. It's highly possible. It depends on how these interest rate increases go. We're not going to know till the next few months. Now, do I think we're going to get back to the horror stories we hear about from our parents? Oh yeah, I paid 18% or even peaked at 21%. No, I don't think we'll even come close to half that. But response to that, mom and dad, is your average house was like $100,000. I'll take $100,000 house with 18% any day versus what we have to deal with today. So yeah.
Well, let's turn the page a little bit and look at some recent sales data. Home buyer demand in Metro Vancouver returned to more historically typical levels in May, which is, a good sign in general. Residential home sales in the region decreased over 31% from May 2021, and we decreased over 9.7% from May versus April of this year. So as agents listing properties, this means our strategies are changing to adapt to the new market conditions. So, as if you're a seller or you're a buyer, you're going to see some of these strategies change when you look at listings. We're no longer listing properties slightly lower than what we determine the market value to be, which was a tactic used to bring in a lot of attention, get a lot of eyes on the property. Oh, wow, look at this place. They're selling it for cheaper than it's actually worth. You get a lot of people in, all of a sudden the price goes up. Instead, what you're probably going to see is a more accurate or slightly higher than accurate pricing in the anticipation that people are going to be bringing in lower offers, knowing that the market is changing. We're also going to start removing deadlines for offers. So again, this was a common practice in real estate parlance. It's known as a DRPO, or direction regarding presentation of offers. And instead, listing agents are going to take offers as they come. So that's another change you'll see when you're looking at listings out there. These shifts show that we're starting to move towards a buyer's market, where potentially buyers are less at the whim of the sellers. So, great if you're a buyer, not as fun times as if you're a seller. Inventory's on the rise and interest rates are on the rise caused by inflation. And that's sort of calming the market as well. Those are having big effects. Last month's sales were almost 13% below the 10-year average. So you can see it in the stats right there. Existing rate holds, as you mentioned earlier, are starting to run out, which will cause prices to further drop as buyers can really afford less. Metro Vancouver sales of detached homes tanked 44.1% in May 2022 versus May of the previous year. I know it's huge number. Metro Vancouver condo sales similarly are down 21.7% versus the same month last year. Metro Vancouver attached home sales in May 2022 dropped 35%. So these are all big numbers, As of June, we're now in a balanced market in many areas and even a buyer's market, depending on where you're looking in Metro Vancouver. So Jessi, let's chat about something that's coming up that we've been hearing a lot about, the cooling off period. Why don't you start with that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know where to go with this one. I do, but it's really frustrating. Would you actually call this a cooling off period? I mean, to me, that sounds like a political play.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you got to give it to the federal government to try something. There's so much pressure on them from the entire Canadian political base to do something to help create affordability in the housing market. But will it actually do something? Personally, I think it could make it worse. For those who don't know what this cooling off period will be, effectively what you're going to get, according to the new laws, is roughly a 7-day period where for any reason, once you've got an accepted offer, as the buyer, you can rescind that offer. Similar laws were brought into place originally many years ago in BC, and then other provinces followed suit, where in the pre-sale market, so these are pre-construction buildings, according to the act that governs those, from the minute you signed the paper, you had 7 days to rescind. And that gave you some breathing room to really figure things out. Well, that rule, the government thinks, is going to help cool the market. Will it really, though? I mean, it's going to allow buyers to sign an agreement, and it's going to allow them then, whereas before you had to go in subject free, now you're going to have that week to do an inspection, to get your financing in place, etc. Well, what's going to happen there? If you take away those components and give people this sort of leeway to do their financing and their inspection after the fact, whereas in the seller's market that we came from, there was so much demand that buyers had to go out and do their due diligence in advance. And if they were really concerned, they would order an inspection at their cost before they even knew they had an accepted offer. You remove those elements, what's left? What's going to make a seller and their agent determine what's the best offer? Price. That's now going to be the number one factor. So is the government doing the right thing by bringing in a cooling off period that effectively is going to make the dollar amount in your offer the number one thing that sellers will look at? I don't know. I don't think so.
It doesn't seem very well thought out. I mean, exactly on what you just said, if price is the number one thing and all of the negotiating tools that we've had before are taken out, that's a problem. To add to what you're saying as well, if someone is serious about a property, they'll get all their financing done. They'll send in their documents to the mortgage provider. They'll get their rate hold. Now people don't have to do that. Like a lot of disorganized buyers, and I hate to say it, realtors too, they'll be writing offers and their clients, and they don't actually have financing. They might not have even talked to someone yet. They don't need to because they've got this time crunch. So I don't know. I fear there's going to be a lot of unscrupulous buyers that'll go write offers on multiple properties, tying up a bunch with no intention of buying more than one. We will have buyers out there. The good thing is you'll have buyers out there that were previously timid in the hot market. They were afraid of getting into bidding wars. They might come out, which is great. But, then you have more buyers coming out, which also increases the market. It'll effectively increase prices instead of cooling them. There needs to be a form of punishment for not being prepared and bailing on an offer. It needs to be substantial to deter shady buyers who abuse the system. This is likely another government intervention that will probably backfire. They didn't even consult the real estate board, the overall real estate industry itself. It's messed up.
Yeah, we did see a lot of communication when the government first hinted at it from our boards and our governing bodies as realtors. basically making noise to say, why didn't you consult us? You know, we're a major component of the industry. We obviously have a lot of knowledge. I did, by the way, Jessi, read an article that I believe they are thinking about bringing in some additional rules that you may not be able to write another offer while you have an offer out there. But again, you know, it just shows you that I think they're on shaky ground right now trying to figure something out.
Well, very. I mean, how they passed legislation without giving any information. How is that even possible? There are recommendations from the BCFCA, which is our governing body that used to govern the mortgage side, previously called FICOM. Now they're governing the real estate, realtor and mortgage side, which I get. That kind of makes sense. They are recommending, it's not confirmed, that the cooling off period will be only 3 days to give someone the option to walk. And then buyers would have to pay a fee of 0.1 to 0.5% of the purchase price if they chose to tap out. They're recommending the government also offer a 5 business day cooling off pre-offer period in addition to the cooling off period, which now puts us at 8 days. So someone trying to sell their home is now in 8 days of limbo with a buyer that they have no idea if they've even talked to a mortgage broker yet.
Yeah, one thing I think you're going to see more commonly too, which was very rare, you know, up until now. Oh, no, I shouldn't say very rare, but rarer, is you're going to see backup offers in writing, second backup offers, etc. Because now realtors obviously want to ensure that they have something for their seller, and if they accept one of these offers now with the cooling off period, and that offer rescinds, well, they want to have a backup offer in place. So I would say as buyers, expect that if you don't get your offer accepted, that you may be asked to yourself be in limbo for days or a week while the first offer is considered, and in writing, you're on hold as a backup offer, and they'll come to you. So that's another tactic you'll probably see come into place more common.
Yeah, I mean, other tactics, like you and I have had many meetings about this. How do we stand out? How do we make our buyers stand out? Now, I like to think we're very good at that already with, video, presenting in person, client bios, letters to the seller. You know, there's tons of stuff we're already doing to make our offers stand out. Now, you know, that's extremely important now to do that. Furthermore, you know, if you're able to prove that your buyer is actually pre-approved properly, hopefully the seller has heard of the company or mortgage broker that the buyer's agent's referencing. In addition to that, experienced agents who've been around for a long time and have been respectful to other agents over the years, which is what you should have at minimum, but it doesn't happen. These agents are going to shine, because if you've got an agent who's listing a property, we come up with one of our buyers and they knew who we are. They've hopefully already dealt with us. They know that we have serious buyers. They're pre-qualified. We know how to do our research. I mean, good luck for another agent to try to compete against that unless they have the same level of connection with that agent. Now, yes, of course, price is number one, but I mean, if we got two offers that are very close, then you've got us, who they know the chances of it going through is like 90 whatever percent, versus agent X they've never heard of and has a poorly presented offer. You know, it's kind of obvious where that one's going to go. So I think all those agents over the years that weren't so friendly, it's going to bite them in the butt during this period.
Yeah, all the more reason to stick with people that, you know, can communicate well, can speak well, and can build, you know, you want your agent to build rapport with the listing agent so that they have a good sense that your offer is going to go through.
Oh, yeah. Being nice and respectful and building rapport with the agent is so important. The amount of offers we won just based on that, even with a lower price, I've lost count. So Azim, we've got this listing coming up in Cloverdale that has the crazy high revenue potential, fully legal. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, this is one we're really excited about. It's, I think it's a rare find. It's in the Clayton area, a very desirable area of Surrey. You've got a house, a 3-level house with a coach house above, a double car garage in the back. Effectively, you have 3 rental income earners here. You've got the main house, which can be separated into the upper 2 levels, 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, great large main floor living area and deck space. Then you've got what can be a separate 2-bedroom suite downstairs. And like I said, then you've got a 1-bedroom coach house in the back. So this one's going to be great. The owner just is finishing up some renovations. We're going to have it on the market in another week. Depending on when you hear this video, it may already be up by then. So watch out for that one as well.
Yeah, I mean, you have three families could, or 3 entities, so to speak, could live in there. The revenue potential of that is huge.
Yeah.
Not only does that help your mortgage pre-approval, but I mean, if it was me, I don't need big space. One thing I've learned in my life. I thought I did, but I don't need more. I would, even if I was younger, I would just move into the coach house, rent out the main house and the lower floor. I mean, that's going to easily cover your mortgage.
That's what our owner is doing right now.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. He's actually, a longtime owner of the property, but is comfortable on his own, living in the coach house, making great money from the main house. And I think if you were to rent all 3, you're looking upwards of, $5,000. But even if you're living in the coach house on your own, renting the main house to 2 separate groups, individuals, families, whatever, you're still looking at the $3,500, $4,000 per month level.
Yeah, for sure.
So given all the doom and gloom we gave before about how expensive homes are, how mortgage rates are increasing, this one's going to be a big one for sure.
But also with rent as well, rents have gone up 30% or whatever. I think it's 25 or 30%. Don't quote me on that number. In the past year. So, begs the question, is it cheaper to rent or buy? In a lot of circumstances, it's actually cheaper to buy these days, depending on what you're looking for, of course.
Yeah, totally.
So, we've got a number of listings right now. There's another one that it's a builder's dream, huge lot in Kits that we have listed at 2.7. I mean, this would have sold for 2.9 easily 3 months ago, but things have changed.
Yeah, that's my old area there on the west side, and I just know even from when I was young and in current times, a lot that size, a lot of people want to build a nice new home on. It's a great area to live in, great area to raise a family in, great area to retire in, etc. We do have one other current listing in Port Moody. It's got a stunning view. It's just on Noble Court. It's actually 7 Noble Court. You can look up our domain, 7noble.ca. The home is perched up on the hill just off Gattonsbury. Like I said, great views of Burrard Inlet year-round, great mountain views, 5-bedroom home on 2 levels, fully renovated. I mean, fully renovated. They just completed the renovations a month or 2 ago, so it's another one to keep your eye out on.
Yeah, actually, now that we're talking about more, I just threw up a listing, less than 800,000, beautiful, open, well laid out condo in Vancouver. It's on Canva. You can check it out on my site. That it's nice to be able to pick up a condo this nice. It's renovated for less than 8 because again, 3 months ago that would have been closer to 9, right? So
yeah,
things are changing. So that's it for this episode. Thanks for watching and listening. Please don't forget to check out my book on Amazon. It's a bestseller based on real estate investing. And if you have any questions for us at any point in time, just pick up the phone. We are very easy to find.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're looking to sell your home and you want that extra touch, you want that advanced marketing, you want some great negotiators on your side, some great presenters, feel free to give us a call. We'd love to chat with you, give you an evaluation on your home and tell you about what we can do to help sell your home for top dollar. Similarly, if you're a buyer looking to buy anywhere in Metro Vancouver or beyond, and you want your offer to stand out in this market, come see us as well. If you're thinking of joining the industry as a realtor, or you're already in the industry and maybe you're not happy with where you're at, give us a shout as well about joining the team at EXP, and we can tell you about this amazing collaborative movement we have at EXP Realty, which is, one of the fastest growing brokerages, I think, in the world now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, that's from us. We'll see you out there again at our next podcast. Thank you so much for listening in.
Thanks, guys.